for everyone to start rolling in, so I think we're going to get started. So good morning and welcome to the March Community Coffee Hour. Today we're going to be hearing from a panel of peers. We're going to be covering strategies for ongoing mentor training and support. But before we get started, we'd like to start with a little bit of an ice melter. So we're going to put you in breakout rooms and we're going to talk about either two questions. The first one, what is one way that you're supporting mentors in your program that you'd like to share? And if you don't run a mentoring program, what makes you feel supported as a mentor? So I believe, is Sarah, somebody's breaking you out into rooms.
I'm going to break you out into 3 or 4 per room.
Okay. And then I'm going to put the question in chat, but I think we'll have to also add it to the breakout.
Good morning. I'm going to move y'all to breakout rooms. I can figure out how to do it. Post.
You haven't? Holy moly.
No, you're in the main room right now because everybody else is in a breakout room, but I'm not sure how to do that. Well, we might not be able to, but we can answer the question that's in the chat box right here in this room that she didn't put in there. It's early. Let's see. These were the questions. I'm going to put them in the chat box. How are you, Allison?
I'm great. How are you, Jennifer?
I am good.
Good.
So these were the two questions, and we only have 1 more minute basically to be in here, but don't know if anybody wants to answer those.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Tiffany, and I would just say, just providing regular check-ins since things are most virtual, and checking in with them on how they're feeling, about having made the transition and how they are able to engage their mentees.
Mm-hmm.
And then behind the scenes, I'm working to get a COVID waiver approved so that they can resume one-on-one sessions at minimum with their mentees in person if they're comfortable and if the family is comfortable.
That's great. I think people will be interested to hear about the COVID getting that lifted. Maybe if you have advice, during some of our breakout session.
You know what? I don't. I actually got the waiver from Andy at Best Kids. And,
oh, you did?
And I've adapted it. And so now it's just going up the chain. He would probably be a better person for that.
Okay.
As I'm just shooting for the stars and but don't know if I've gotten anywhere yet.
Well, that sounds good. So you're on here because of, Tiffany, are you up in Northern Virginia or where?
Yes, it would be the Befriended Child.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, and I've seen you in some of our past ones. I knew your name looked familiar too. All right. Well, everybody's going to start coming back in a second. That was a real quick little breakout session.
We tried.
Too fast, too fast.
Definitely.
Okay.
All right.
So I think we're going to open up with a poll before we hear from our panelists. Let me just. Sorry, folks, my Zoom. There we go. It minimized. Okay, so the first poll, I think, Sarah, you're posting it.
Yes.
Awesome. So in this one, we're going to talk about a couple questions. Have you conducted virtual trainings for your mentors, and how often do you offer them? And if you are offering them, what's the length of your training session? Okay, we got about half participants, so we'll let it go a little bit longer. %, getting there. Just give it a couple more seconds. All right, I think. Oh, Allison, your submit button's not working. Sorry about that. If you want to type your answers, well, that's going to take a long time. Forget that answer. All right, I think we're going to close out though. Okay, so it looks like the majority of the group has conducted virtual trainings. Pretty split on how often, but the commonality looks like quarterly or just not really scheduled at a regular session, and then about 1 hour for those. We got awesome. Thank you, everybody. And it kind of gives us a snapshot of like everything that we're offering in this room and what you folks are, trying to build in your programming. All right, so I think now Jennifer is going to introduce the panelists.
Yes. So we are excited to have two great panelists with us today. Leslie Velez is K through 12 intervention specialist for Henrico HEROES, which is a one-to-one mentoring program that serves the youth of Henrico County Public Schools. And they launched in 2009, and they serve a broad range from elementary up through high school. And then we also have Andy Miller, who is the program director for Best Kids, and they provide mentoring to foster care children in DC, in the DC Child Welfare System. And they were the first pilot program in DC to provide volunteer mentors dedicated to mentoring children in foster care. So I think we're going to go ahead and begin with Leslie.
Good morning, everyone. It is great to be in this space with so many familiar faces. I wish I could shout out all of you, but hey, from afar, I see the waves, I see you. I'm very excited to share some information with you. What I'd like to do is share my screen just so that I have a few slides to share a few points about what Henrico HEROES has been doing for our mentors this past year. Hopefully you're able to see my screen. If you cannot, I cannot see you, so someone give me a shout out if you cannot see it. As Jennifer mentioned, we are Henrico HEROES. We are a division-wide mentoring program, the longest standing initiative in our school division, so we're very proud of that. We currently serve 33 schools and monitor 38 programs within those schools that run from elementary, middle to high school students. As mentioned, I'm Leslie Velez. I'm the intervention specialist for Henrico County Public Schools, and I oversee all of the programs. Big part of our role is to make sure that we are able to sustain a supportive network. And I have these pictures before you just to demonstrate that there are so many adults that have come together in the past and continue to come together to mentor our students. And so it's very important that we provide the support to our mentors, especially in a space now where we are working virtually, right? And we're no longer working in person, as you see these pictures represent. And so we needed to figure out, how can we stay connected while still practicing social distancing? How can we create a supportive space, a safe space for all of our mentors to be able to come together during this era? What we decided to do was provide ongoing support through the virtual space by providing mentor conversations and coffee sessions. There is a series that we provided to our mentors, provide them with resources, along with resources that can be used by the mentor and the mentee. And I'm just going to briefly go over some of those things with you this morning. So let's just take a moment to explore the coffee series. The coffee series entails many different topics that a focus group did come together to, I want to go ahead and zoom in on the topics. But the whole premise behind it was that the focus group decided, you know, we need to find a way to support our mentors, because the mentors are our volunteers, and without our mentors, we don't have a mentoring program. And then we also had to be realistic in thinking we need to provide them with as much support as possible so that we can continue to have mentors serve year after year after year with us. And so a big part of that is feeling supported through this entire process. So we decided to offer monthly sessions, creating this network that would empower mentors to come and speak about their mentoring programs in their schools and bring up any questions based on topics that we had selected. And so some of the topics included those that are here before you, which would be helping our mentors navigate virtual platforms, discuss trauma awareness, expose them to coping strategies as it relates to helping their mentees process conflict management skills, unconscious bias, and then lastly, to date, we have conversations about race, racism, and racial injustice with our mentees. And so what it does is it allows the mentors to come into the space to discuss this information. But before even getting to a point where they discuss it, we offer them a training video that we push out to them a week prior to the discussion. Typically, the video lasts around 10 to 15 minutes. It is centered around the topic. It covers reflective questions that the mentor can think through before coming into the space virtually so that they can engage in the discussion and share out any concerns or bring up any questions that they may have. During that session, we also provide some resources that they could put into practice immediately. And what I like to think of it as is that we are providing them with these nuggets or these takeaways that they can put into practice, not even in the mentoring scenario, but even in their own personal lives. And so to me, that's a win-win situation. So we offer them a resource sheet, and the resource sheet does share out all of the videos, worksheets, any accompanying videos and activities, along with the recording of the session of the discussion, provided that the mentors are okay with recording the session. Again, we want to make sure that it is a safe space that we're creating. And so if they don't feel comfortable recording their discussion, we don't do that. So that's why sometimes you see some recordings of sessions and then others, there aren't any recordings. But one session in particular that I absolutely loved was the session on conflict management, because we were able to give them very specific activities on how to deal with emotions. And so they could put those into practice immediately. Our next session happens to be on March 17th, and we're already geared up and prepared to hold that discussion with them next week. Lastly, we wanted to make sure that our mentors and mentees were also supported. And so we created a space for them where they could, again, access resources for themselves to engage in activities with their mentees, or for the mentees to access any strategies or things that they feel would help them in the midst of these trying times, as we've all been experiencing during this pandemic. And so our mentor page specifically outlines a very hot topic for us this year, which was on mindfulness. And so we have 30 days of mindfulness and various other activities that they can engage in with their mentees virtually. So that space is for them. Then we have a space for our mentees, which is our mindfulness room, where mentors can push them in the direction to utilize this space so that if they are indeed in a situation where they need to ground themselves, they have a space where they can access many resources to be able to do so. And so that's just a brief overview of some of the pieces that we have provided as a form of support to our mentors, again, to sustain this network of community. What they've loved about this is that they love that it is a casual and safe space where they feel like they can really engage in the discussion, and that it's not so much a sit and get, but instead a space where we can really just pick each other's brains and share ideas and resources. And they love the fact that they could pull resources and put them into practice immediately. It's important that when thinking about initiatives or different things that we're doing where they're being newly pushed out, you know, it's important to think about the opportunities where we could improve upon. And for us, we would love to be able to increase engagement. At this time, I would say we're averaging about 20 participants, which we will take as a win and as a success. But I am hopeful that those numbers will steadily increase as we incorporate new strategies and plans to do so. And the other piece to it all, because this is a virtual piece, we do offer the trainings on the website that I had just gone on a moment ago. And so the thought at this time is, if indeed a mentor does go through and view the video, how can we make sure that we know and we are able to monitor how much traction we're seeing, or traffic, I should say, in viewing some of those videos. I have to be honest and transparent with all of you. Initially, when we were thinking through all of this, you know, as most would say, change is really difficult at first. It's kind of messy in the middle. But what is gorgeous about it in the end is the fact that this is something that we were able to embrace and learn from. And now I envision being able to use some of these techniques and strategies to provide mentors with support going forward in the future. Lastly, I just want to make sure I give a shout out to Mentor VA. A great big thank you to you for making this possible, because they were the ones that were able to speak to me about my vision and help with videos and worksheets and resources, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. So thank you all. If you ever need me, if you'd like to pick my brain or ask me any questions, I've left my handle and my email address so that you can reach out at any moment.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Before we move on to Andy, any questions? We have a few minutes here that we could add in some questions.
Not a question as much as a comment. I really loved how you had, it looked like on your website, a page that was just for mentors and a page that was just for mentees, to allow them to kind of go when they need it, as opposed to waiting for some kind of specific training. Is that like a password protected thing, or is that something that is just open to all?
No, sharing is caring, right? And so we put it out there to the public so that anyone can access it, so that you could even go onto the site and take a look at it. I think that we are best when we are sharing resources one another, because we're all in the same line of work together. And so even from like a coordinator or director type of standpoint, that is there for anyone to access, even to the coordinators who run the programs. They may be able to just jump on in there real quick to grab something that they feel would be useful for their group.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
can you direct us where that is? I'm on your website right now, but I'm not finding what you shared, and it's
Sure.
amazing.
Sure. If I can share my screen just once more so that I can kind of show you very, very quickly. So if you look up at the very top.
We can't see your screen, Leslie.
Oh, you can't? Okay, thank you. Oh, it's because I forgot to hit the share button. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so if you take a look at the very top, at the top toolbar, you see Henrico HEROES Zendan, you see programs, and you see resources. If you go to resources, jump down to mentors, you will see that there is a mentor community coffee series flyer, the one that I showed you with all of the topics. And then you'll see the videos that have already been uploaded. And then the mentor resource sheet that I showed you is right there as well. We're now in the process of updating the section just for parents so that they have access to resources as well. But if you go back to the Zendan, there are already resources in the Zendan that are embedded for the parent page. And so we're looking to just expand that a little bit more.
Thank you so much, Leslie.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And so, Andy, I'd love to give you the floor now and talk about your training series.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, just good morning, everybody. So great to meet most of you for the first time. It's great to be a part of the these meetings that you're doing, and I definitely appreciate the invitation. So I'm from Best Kids. We are based in Southeast Washington, D.C., and we are a nonprofit mentoring organization that empowers youth in foster care to build better futures one child at a time. So we work specifically with the D.C. foster care population. We serve ages 6 through 21, and we provide volunteer mentors. We're a community-based program, so we're not school-based or specific neighborhood-based, but we're kind of DC community at large based. We serve youth that live in DC, but also some youth that live in Maryland, but they're all eventually wards of DC, or once their foster cases close, they may be living with relatives or parents in Maryland. So just to talk a little about what we do for ongoing training and support, we do, as I'm sure most of you do, follow the elements for effective practice for the monthly check-in schedules. We do monthly check-ins, and we check in twice that first month of the match. We check in monthly for the first 2 years, and then after 2 years, we do quarterly check-ins. And it's so important to have that regular touch point with a staff member. You know, almost that there's this other like third member of the relationship that the staff member is providing that ongoing support. So we provide, as long as I've been at Best Kids, which has been 6 years now, we've provided monthly ongoing trainings. And they're trainings that are all around topics that the youth and mentors are currently experiencing. So we really want to try to make these topics as tailored and as you know, fine-tuned as much as possible, so that it is you know, benefiting the mentor. We understand that our mentors are all volunteers. I mean, DC is as most of you know, DC is a very busy place. People working really crazy hours, and the fact that they're committing 10 hours a month to their mentees is amazing, plus availing themselves to these trainings. So our ongoing trainings are all at this point voluntary. We may make some required in the near future, but all of our trainings are still our ongoing trainings post-match are all voluntary right now. So we offer trainings from various topics. So we'll offer trainings on kind of, I hate to use the word general, but like just general mentoring issues. So like relationship development, right? You know, building that relationship with your mentee, positive youth development. We'll offer trainings around that, but we'll also go in more detail about like, you know, let's do a training on how to navigate the DC foster care system. Like what's all made up in the DC foster care system. We'll do trainings around trauma-informed care. You know, and it's fun to think up of these topics because they're all topics that our mentors can utilize and benefit from to better serve their kids. We've done trainings around like how does doing physical activity with your mentee help their, you know, social and emotional development. Our next training is actually going to be on March this is the month we're in, March 23rd. And it's called Let's Talk About Health in the Black Community, because there are issues around that, especially with the COVID-19 crisis and how that has disproportionately affected various people groups, and especially with our youth who are all Black and brown. So we try to be as tailored and as innovative as possible with our ongoing trainings. We try to set up good partnerships so that we can bring in trainers after, bring in trainers more and more, bring in like the same trainers over and over again who can tailor themselves to different topics. We also have a partnership with the Child and Family Services Agency, who we have a direct contract with in DC, and they also provided free monthly trainings for us as well around de-escalation, around how best to mentor youth who identify as LGBTQ. So we try to offer a very wide array of topics for our mentors. So that was our model pre-COVID, and I would say it's still pretty similar. However, we always dealt with the issue of attendance pre-COVID. We were like, okay, these trainings are awesome. Like, we have these really great trainers. We're spending, we're spending resources on it, which is all a great investment, but like we might get 4 or 5 mentors to come out of like the 100 that we have. So like, how do we get this out to more people? And we full disclosure, I'm not the best with tech. So I'm like, well, can we like Facebook Live it? Can we Twitter Live it? Can we like archive it? Like, there were just so many resources I felt like we have, but we just never really tried it. And then COVID hit and we were forced to do these trainings virtually. I'm like, oh, wow. Like, so while we didn't have the in-person aspect of COVID, which we're all still very much, pre-COVID, which is we're all very much missing, trainings being forced to go virtually now upped our attendance like exponentially. We're now able to have like 20 people on a training because all it required was just joining a Zoom call, and it took away that barrier of having to get to a physical location. While, once things open back up, I'm sure we'll still do physical trainings again, but we're definitely not letting go of the virtual aspect of trainings, because it really gave people the opportunity to access the trainings who couldn't access them before. So we still do monthly trainings, but they're all virtual right now. And like I said, they're still around a myriad of topics. And I definitely want to go into what happened over the summer for us, because that was kind of a game changer as well. So, all of us dealt with a year ago around this time, we all dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic and how that affected an in-person mentoring program. I'm still kind of processing that, even though it's been a year later. And how that, and how we do virtual mentoring. So we've learned a lot. So we were wrestling with that at the time. And then, May hit, and then we had the murder of George Floyd, and the conversation that our country was forced to enter around racial inequity and racial injustice. And while Best Kids definitely has been mindful of that before, we've done, around those trainings that I talked to you about before, those monthly trainings, we definitely offered trainings around race and ethnic relations. What is racism? What is white privilege? We've done those trainings before, but we've never done to this extent, and we've never really grappled with that. And what does that mean for our mentors and our youth? What does that mean when you have a white mentor mentoring a person of color who have very different stories? So we had to do some soul searching of our own, and even identify like, where in our organization do we have privilege? Are we, where are we enacting kind of white saviorism? So we had to do definitely some soul searching there. We're still doing that. But we came to this realization over the summer around the murder of George Floyd that, all right, we need to do something different for our mentors and for our youth. There's a lot of pain right now, and our youth are experiencing it, and we need to give them a voice. We need to give them a platform to stand on. So we offered 2 different series of trainings throughout the month of July. We offered a series of training for our youth. We called them the Amplified series, where we brought in consultants from the community, mental health supports from the community, and they talked to our youth. We split our youth up into 4 different age groups around topics such as, what is racism? What is protest? what is, how is that different from looting? What do you see on the news? Historical issues. And look, all of our consultants were people of color, so that our youth could see somebody that looked like them presenting this topic. So we did four different age groups for our youth. And again, we had like 2 to 3 consultants in each group, plus a mental health support. And it's all over Zoom. So that was a whole other layer of imagination right there. And then we did a series of 4 trainings for our mentors as well. And we call them the solidarity sessions. And that is where we brought in our mentors, and we brought in, again, a consultant around racial equity. And we also brought in a mental health support to aid in those sessions. And those sessions really opened our eyes as an organization to be like, okay, like as we're bringing people in, like, yes, it's great that you have a caring spirit, and it's great that you pass a background check, but we need more than that. We need more than that for our kids. So we need, like, how do you respond to issues of racial inequity? How do you respond to, knowing about yourself and knowing where you need to learn as well? So it definitely opened our eyes to some mentors who are currently in our program that are dealing with that by having some hard conversations with them during the sessions this summer. We've tackled issues, like I said before, about what racism is, what white privilege is, but also like what is anti-racism and what is whiteness, and how are we either enacting or not enacting those in our organization, and what does that mean for your mentoring relationship? So those sessions really opened our eyes to figure out, okay, how do we want to do this moving forward? Like, these sessions were great and like stemmed some really good conversations, but we also said, like, we need to be having this ongoing conversation more. So we're still trying to figure out what that looks like, whether it's going to be a monthly or quarterly training. We had some other big issues come up in the fall around like funding that we kind of had to figure out how to restructure things, but we are in the process of trying to figure out, like, how do we make this an ongoing training for our mentors? So we actually have a mentor leadership committee that we have made up of like 12 of our mentors, and we have subcommittees on that committee. And one of those subcommittees is racial equity and social justice. And their task is to help our organization figure out, all right, how can we make our organization more equitable, not just in terms of race, but as far as gender expression, sexual orientation, and so forth. So yeah, let's see what else. Okay, so we do a monthly peer group. We also try to generate mentor community as well in our organization, and I try to make that as organic as possible. So a lot of our mentors, a lot of our staff will tell you that Best Kids is kind of like a family. It's kind of like a community where we use each other for support as well. So not only do mentors get support from staff, but they get support from their fellow mentors. They get support from mentors who have been there for a while. So we have monthly peer groups where we get all of our kids and mentors together, and we do some kind of activity. We break those up into age groups as well. But it's a good time for kids to meet other kids who are also in the same program, also might be in foster care. And then our mentors, it gives them the opportunity to connect as well. And it's also important that we have activities just for mentors. So pre-COVID, we would do like a quarterly happy hour where we'd bring all of our mentors together and just kick back and relax. We might talk about mentoring and what's going on in our program, but we might just get to know each other on a personal level too, which was really important. And now since we're doing everything virtual, we've tried to do some virtual happy hours, even though that didn't really kick off as well as we wanted it to. But we did some yoga sessions on Zoom for just our mentors to kind of give them that space to take care of themselves and also connect with one another. So it's very important that we also support our mentors with activities that are just for them as well. So definitely said a lot, but we're very proud of the ongoing trainings that we do for our mentors. We feel like it really benefits them and their youth in the long run. And we feel like it helps them stay in the program longer, helps them commit to their youth longer. So happy to take any questions. And again, just thank you so much, Mentor Virginia, for inviting us to be a part of this today.
You're welcome. So yes, like I said, if we want to open up the floor to a couple questions, I really liked how Andy stressed that they want their mentors to be more than just a caring adult that's passed a background check, really investing in them, in their own personal journey and reflection so that they can be the best mentor that they can be.
I wrote down that quote too, that same one, that's really, I think, powerful. We in our organization sometimes struggle with, you've got somebody who wants to volunteer their time and we need mentors, but they're not quite the right fit for what we need. So we always try to connect them back with mentor to get them to a place that is the right fit for them. But it's hard because you want to, you need every body you can have, but it's got to be the right body. That's really good.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like, what every organization grows. In fact, our organization's turning 20 this year. But like, yeah, I remember when I first started, it was like, yeah, are they a caring adult? Awesome. Did they pass everything? Great. Like, let's get them moving forward. And some worked out awesome. Like there's some mentors that I'm like, I'm not sure how that's going to work. But then like they meet the right kid and it's like they're still together 6 years later. But yeah, like there are some people now that we're having like some pretty good, though hard conversations about, to be like, all right, like this person seems great for another program, another option, but this just isn't a good fit for us right now. So we try to be as like gentle as possible, but also referring them to other organizations and other opportunities to serve.
How does it look like when you are going about that of translating somebody to this isn't the right fit for you, or like how do you go about gently doing that?
That's a great question. So when we if we were to use the word reject somebody from the process, we don't necessarily have to. We have in our policy, we don't have to tell them the reason why they're not moving forward. But we usually just try to say that like at this time we just don't think this is going to be a great fit for you or for the youth we serve. However, we feel like you could be a great fit for another program. We'll definitely refer them back to Mentor. We'll refer them to other DC-based programs that. And there could be various reasons why they're not a good fit. It's not just a one size fits all, but there's a various number of reasons why they couldn't be a good fit.
Andy, I actually have a question about so with the consultants and kind of bringing outside folks in, what does your training budget look like? And has that changed with COVID? How do you anticipate that, looking this coming year? Just so I think, because I mean, there are all sorts of different sizes of programs. So just kind of getting a sense of how much you're able to invest kind of in that piece.
That's a great question. So this summer for those sessions was a kind of a different ball game as far as training goes. And there was a lot of like, I have to really applaud our executive director, Chrislyn Mossman, who like, she was the one that said, okay, we've got all this COVID stuff that we're still dealing with, but this is our biggest fish to fry right now. And we need to do what we can to make this happen. So she made it happen. She moved money around. She was like, okay, we can do something here to make this happen. So that's not a normal thing for us. However, I can definitely speak to your point about for our ongoing trainings, we try to budget we have about enough to pay about $400 to $500 for a monthly training session for a consultant. Some people do it out of the goodness of their heart, which is awesome, but we try to allocate that much for that.
So I think at this point, I will ask a couple questions just to the whole group, and hopefully we can get some conversation going as well. Thank you so much, Andy, for that. And again, just showing the importance of training for your mentors and that you guys are making a priority in your budget, which is great too. But what additional training topics would you like to offer to your mentors? So just thinking across the board, if you could share some things, topics.
Sarah, I really appreciate the question about the budget, because I think, for us, this is Trisha from C4K in Charlottesville. We really lean towards like the hard skills kinds of things, because it's not controversial to teach Photoshop. It's not controversial to teach like how to 3D print. But the hard topics around trauma-informed care and equity and those kinds of heavy topics, and the idea that you really want a professional to lead those trainings, not me. Like I'm not a professional in that area. And so, those are topics that we really want to offer to our mentors and to our staff. But, our goal right now, I think, is to put some effort into finding those resources that are affordable or, free through other partner organizations. But thinking about that, those kinds of trainings can cost, money, because you want a trained professional to be the one to provide it. So it's a great question.
And I will say, just to add on to that piece, especially for like the harder topics, it's great when you can build a partnership with a trainer that can come back and continually do like that same training, or can do a modification of that training, that you just build this mutual relationship with, that the mentors build a connection with as well, because it'll encourage them to come back as well. That's what happened with our racial equity trainings, is we brought this one consultant in for a training pre-COVID, and we liked her so much, and she was able to pack a lot of information to like a 2.5-hour training. So we're like, just imagine what she can do with four weeks of 2-hour training. So yeah, I definitely echo that.
That's such a good point, because it's, those kinds of trainings require a lot of vulnerability on the part of everyone. And so people coming into those kinds of trainings with an openness, it really does require someone that we trust. And if you know the person, they seem familiar to you, it certainly makes it a lot easier to open up,
In the chat box also, we have how to overcome different viewpoints between the volunteer and the family, mostly surrounding COVID-19. Setting boundaries, and also how to build relationships with the family of a mentee.
I have a question for Andy and Leslie. I'm sure that your trainings for your mentors were in person pre-COVID, and obviously they've been virtual. Do you expect that, once we're back in person, to still offer those virtually because of just the ability to reach your mentors, or do you see a hybrid kind of training schedule for your mentors?
Yeah, I I definitely see a hybrid schedule. And that's the beauty of all of this. And that's why at the end I was talking about change, right? We were forced into having to rethink how we were going to offer this level of support. And in that, I felt like I came out learning so much more, and it brought to the forefront more ideas of how we can support our mentors. And so I anticipate still doing in-person training and other like events or sessions, but I also want to infuse some of the online virtual opportunities as well, especially for those who are not able to come in person. That will open up, the door to allow them to still engage in some really important topics.
I think Kaylee wanted to ask a question as well, so I want to give you the opportunity.
Just a comment on like the trainings and supports we've been thinking about what we're going to offer our mentors in the next year. And one that's come up a lot is sort of the language we used to talk about, like the educational impact of the last year, like this idea of like learning loss, and how we're framing that for our mentors, so that we're not telling our mentees like, hey, you've lost all this time, all these experiences, and trying to frame that in more of a, you've lost this, but you've actually gained all these other experiences, and you've gained this resilience, and there are all these different opportunities, if that makes sense. So yeah, just preparing our mentors of like, preparing them to speak on this year in a positive and fruitful way for our mentees.
Great. I really appreciate that comment, that asset base, that they've had the resilience during this time period.
question for Mr. Miller. I'm sorry, I must have missed when you were referring who the resources that you used that you brought in. If you could go over that again, if you hadn't, I missed that.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as for our monthly ongoing trainings, we'll bring in people from the DC community mostly. One trainer we brought in particular was named Thandor Miller. He does a lot of youth development trainings in the district. But we also brought in a trainer by the name of Allison Walker, who does, like, she's a DC-based social worker who has her own organization where she's a physical trainer, but also works with youth around the issues of trauma. She's a therapist, and she used to work for Child and Family Services, so she has a lot of just in-depth knowledge. So she is one of our trainers that she comes back periodically to do trainings around different topics, and we'll approach her and be like, Allison, we really want to do a training around this. Do you do that? I'm like, yeah, I could do a training around that. So we make that happen. One of the trainers we brought in for this past summer was by the name of Tierney Thurmond, and I can email these out to you all if that would be helpful. But she just did a fantastic job around explaining certain terms for our mentors, really making things real for our mentors, and really putting that in the context of a mentoring relationship and kind of systemically, historically, where our mentees are coming from regarding racial equity. So yeah, they're from just a myriad of different places. So I'm happy to share some resources with you if you'd like. And for this summer, like for our resources for like our kids group, and then for our mentors, like I just shared, like a lot of them just came through our various networks. So like our ED just kind of like, hey, do you know of anybody that does these trainings or that does consulting around this area? And we just kind of did like an all-out reach out just for these resources, and it's amazing how people from the community responded to help out with us.
Thank you.
Andy, I'm wondering how much vetting by staff do you do of these trainers that you haven't met before? Because I know that's something that would be of a concern to us, that I wouldn't want to bring in a trainer that we hadn't had any experience with prior
Absolutely. Yeah. So I know when I directly oversaw the trainings, I would, because we would always have a pretty good idea of what we wanted out of a trainer. So we would have some pretty good ideas already. Like, so I would encourage you just to have like those, like, what do you want out of this session? Like, what do you want your mentors to learn? And go over that list with that trainer and hear like what their perspective, how their approach would be. Like, so in a series of like, I would do various phone calls with the trainers beforehand, and I'll have them send me a proposal before we'd move forward. So just as much to get as much as you can, to get as a rough idea as possible to see like, okay, how is this training going to flow once we get there? I'm not gonna lie, like not every trainer is perfect. We've had some trainers that are like, oh yeah, I do that topic, and then like they've come and we're like, whoa, this is not anything close to what we originally planned for. So yeah, like we've definitely learned from our mistakes in the past. But yeah, just that's a great point as well. It's very important to just have your expectations and keep your expectations high. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But it's better to like make that break there than move forward and have it be, not something that your mentors need.
These are some really great points. Andy, we're in the same boat where we are trying to look for individuals who are experts in their craft, right? And so for me, overseeing several programs, it's important for us to establish partnerships and to network. And we have what's called a Henrico Partnership for Family and Community Engagement. And in that, we have individuals that come from various agencies throughout the county, which include Department of Social Services, which includes Henrico Mental Health and Developmental Services. And so for me, I've tapped into those sources to provide facilitation of trainings. I'm fortunate enough to work with a school division who has a Department of Equity, Diversity, and Opportunity. And so when it comes to topics such as unconscious bias or having conversations about racism or racial injustice, I have an expert that I can reach out to. And so those are some things that you can consider moving forward when you're planning is who's part of your network. How can you expand that network to include individuals that you can form these partnerships with who could essentially provide this type of training because they are an expert in that craft.
Absolutely. That was an excellent point, Leslie. Yes.
I know that we've been discussing a lot about the specific trainings, but thinking also, how else can you support mentors beyond trainings?
I really love what you did, Andy, with the yoga session for the mentors. I think that was amazing, and I wrote that down.
Thanks. Honestly, that was something that we're like, oh my gosh, these virtual happy hours just aren't cutting it. So we need to think of something that our mentors will like to do together. And yeah, it's been a challenge to engage mentors virtually, but I feel like it's given us more opportunity to do it, or opportunity to try new things. So even I think during the summer as well, and even like last spring, we even offered times just for mentors to come together and just chat about like, hey, how are you guys navigating the pandemic with your mentee? Like, how are you doing virtual mentoring? Is there some mentors who like took to virtual mentoring right away and be like, oh yeah, like let's FaceTime, let's Zoom, let's do this game. And there are some mentors like, what's FaceTime? So it's good to have those people come together and be able to share ideas in that regard.
Great. Well, I'm going to actually turn this over to Sarah, and she has a great connection for us with yoga too. So if you like that idea, she has more information to come.
I'm going to share my screen very quickly, just a couple of announcements, and then we're going to do a wrap-up poll to kind of wrap up today. So we do have a quick survey. I'll drop that in the chat once I've stopped sharing my screen so that y'all can access that. That's really just how we continue to make sure we're providing community coffee hours that are relevant, timely, useful for all of you. And I hope today's session definitely kind of fit the bill on all of those things. It's been a great conversation. So I will again drop that link in the chat. So here is our connection to yoga. So we're very excited to be able to offer on April 18th in partnership with Bare Soul Yoga and Wellness, a day of well-being. There's going to be 8 sessions led by experts focusing on yoga, breath work, meditation, mindfulness, and movement. And these sessions are accessible for all bodies, all abilities, all ages. This is designed to be a space where families can kind of engage in all of these different sessions together. Also mentors, mentees could engage in these together, or you can come solo. You know, any of those things are possible, and it's kind of drop in, drop out as you please. It'll be taking place throughout much of the day on April 18th, which is a Sunday. So this is kind of a space where you can learn about mindfulness if you're new to it. If you already have a practice, you can just continue to kind of engage in that through this. So we're very, very excited. We'll make sure that we have links to learn more and to purchase tickets. Tickets are $25 for an entire household. So and considering that there's 8 sessions, it's like a crazy good deal. So very excited that will be coming up very soon. Also, if you happen to be in Richmond and you want to kind of get out and engage in the community a little bit, all month long, Star Hill, Richmond Beer Hall, and Rooftop is kind of we're their Cheers for Charity this month. So $1 from every pint of the Love Wheat beer that is sold will be going to support Mentor Virginia and the work of expanding quality youth mentoring throughout the state. So, and Mentor Virginia staff will be on site on the 22nd and on the 25th of this month. So we hope to see some of you there. We also have a new mentor training that is coming up this month. It's Tuesday, March 30th from 6 to 7:30. If you happen to have any mentors who are coming on board right now and in need of that pre-match new mentor training, we do have an upcoming session. We'll make sure that the link is accessible to you all after this. I also just kind of wanted to take a moment. So Leslie did a great shout out earlier about the training videos that she's been able to develop kind of with our team of consultants through our technical assistance program. So that's a no cost program consultation. And we are able to access and be able to offer this service at no cost through a grant we have, our partnership we have with the ODJDP and with Mentor National. And we are running through the hours very, very quickly. We run on the federal grant cycle. So we're currently operating on the cycle from October to September. So between now and September, there are limited hours left to be able to provide no cost support to programs. So if there's any interest at all or any ways that we can support you between now and September, I would highly encourage to request that assistance sooner than later to ensure that you're able to kind of get in before those hours disappear. And then lastly, we do have our April community coffee hour. We do this every Wednesday, or not every Wednesday. We do this the second Wednesday of every month from 9 to 10. And so I'm going to stop sharing so that we can actually do a quick poll and pick what our topic will be for next time. We want to make sure that it is
What date was that?
April 14th, so the second Wednesday. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and launch this. So of the 3 topics on the screen, which would you all prefer to discuss next time? So we have storytelling strategies for your program. So that could be thinking about fundraising, communications, how are you communicating your program to your mentors, to mentees and families, all that kind of stuff. Thinking about what does it look like to move to a hybrid model or back to in-person mentoring after the e-mentoring that we've been seeing as we hope things start to open back up, and then building a pipeline for targeted mentor recruitment. So let's see here. Got 88% in. Give it just another couple of seconds. I'm going to go ahead and end, and it looks like our winner is building a pipeline for targeted mentor recruitment. So that will be the topic that we go with for next time, so April 14th, and I'll make sure that you all have the link to be able to access that. And I'm also going to go ahead and drop that. I promised I would drop. My computer is not cooperating with me. Drop the link to that quick evaluation so that y'all can take that before we head off. So I'm going to pass it back over to Natalie to kind of close this out.
So again, just want to thank our guest speakers too, Andy and Leslie, for sharing this information. And we, like I said, we'll have additional resources for you in an email, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all so much.